The alien way, when the Ruml creature, Cater Secondiscons, cruising in the vicinity of the pole star, found the Earth-originated artifact, he didn't know it was bait for him. Appropriately, it was a simple dirtworm, much like those on the Ruml homeworld when Cater handled it. Virus-sized transistors penetrated his skin and swam to his brain. Those transistors were linked electronically with the brain of Earthman Jason Barchar, so a man in a world Cater had never seen but intended to conquer, knew Cater's every thought, watched his every action. But the man's mind became so much a part of the Ruml's mind that sometimes he did not know whether he was Jason Barchar or Cater's second cousin. A science fiction novel, A Vaulting Imagination, Chapter 1. Turning in his sleep, Jason Barchar rolled over southeast that the weight of his head was upon the right side of his skull, under which the receiver had been implanted. The area was still tender, even 2 months after the operation, so that he rolled a little further until he was almost on his stomach, and went back to dreaming about the bears. He was dreaming that he was again out on a hillside in the Canadian Rockies, where he had actually been 6 years before. He was lying very still in the spring sunlight, with the wide-angle binoculars at his eyes, looking down into a small natural meadow with only a few birch and spruce scattered through it. The stiff, broken stalks of winter-killed grass among the new growth pricked his wrists where his leather jacket had pulled back to expose the skin, and his elbows were sore from contact with the wreck under the damp surface skin of earth, but he paid no attention. Below there were about 24 of the bears, and the spring fury of mating and battles was on them. The brown and black cubs were mostly already up in the trees, and the females were hanging back, but just below him, in the weedy lists of a little open arena, 2 males stalked each other, up on hind legs, necks arched snake-like and heads thrust forward in rage. They were lost in their rages. They did not see him upon the hillside, or the females hanging back, or the cubs in the trees, and they did not care. There was nothing left for either of them but the other bear facing him. They were almost formal and completely honest in their absencings and their shuffling retreats. Shay's heartbeat with theirs. That was why I made him a naturalist, which, like all important work, was a way of thinking, not just the application of a lot of book knowledge as people thought, and thinking that did not understand things like the spring fighting of the bears. They thought the urge to fight, the fighting and the winning or losing, was a simple matter of automatic instinct and easy reflex. But it was not so. There was custom to it, and a complex of experience operating on the part of each combatant. There was desire and decision and courage required from each bear. There was hope and fear and the need to tell a bluff from a true threat. There were many factors entering into each situation in the meadow, each combat, and no 2 combats were ever alike. So Jace dreamed that he watched and learned from the bears, while the hum of the insects in his dream blended with the hum of the air conditioner in his bedroom window, and in the window of his living room beyond. The whole dark brick-walled apartment in the stifling rainy June night was a cool cave of isolation set off from the unsleeping nighttime streets of Washington, D.C. Outside, where the cats rolled all night long over the glistening asphalt, past the traffic signals and the neon signs of restaurants, in the sleeping apartment, nothing moved. The air conditioners hummed. The bedroom was shadowy. The distant light of a street lamp glowed faintly through the drawn blinds and touched the opposite wall beyond the bed with two ghostly faint rectangles of light. They seemed on the verge of merging, so uncertain they were, and pale. Jace's clothes lay lumped on the chair by the bed. The carpet beneath the chair was a plane of darkness, reaching toward the open doorway and through it into the larger space of the living room. There the walls were lit by three more ghosts of windows. The light showed bookshelves and a glass case crammed full of the study skins of small animals' vitamins, carefully sewn, preserved with borax, and tacked. The number of them piled in the case made them look like a horde of prisoners, penned by the invisible glass walls as the bears were penned by invisible instinct and desire. On the bookshelves filling the walls of the room from floor to ceiling, the faint light through the blinds barely showed some of the titles: P. Chopin, Preparation of Bird Skins for Study. On the desk full of papers, the still uncashed last paycheck made out to Jason S. Barchar by the newly formed Wildlife Studies section of the U.S. Department of the Interior lay shadowy and still. It was a half paycheck, since Jace had been on sabbatical leave the last 2 months. Under the check was a birthday card 2 weeks old on which was scribbled, with no apologies whatever, to Milne hippie peppy bifidane, love Mia. As the later dark, the apartment slumbered all but the receiver, the tiny microdivot implanted under Jace's skull. With its hair-thin wire reaching into certain areas of his brain, unsleeping, uninsulated, the receiver reached outward through a tight, invisible channel of collapsed space to a cold, dark fragment of herb manufacture, so far distant that it was just being touched just now by the same sunlight that had shone on those condemned in the Salem witch trials in 1692. Close now, approaching though he did not know it, that fragment in a vessel no larger than a 35-foot motor launch on Earth, came another dreamer, a dreamer who had never breathed spring mountain air, or the damp air of a Washington night, or any earthly air. Neither stuffed and preserved study specimen nor human boat-borne neon restaurant card could have spoken to him intelligibly. No birthday card would have made sense to him. No signed check supported him. No brown bear's battle stirred him inwardly. Still he dreamed also. He sat with his hands on a sloping table covered